Okay. Um, Welcome to the Film Student Study Guide. This is our third episode. This is Roberto Manco-Stens, as well as my esteemed guest, Truman Matheny.
Shoot, we never asked Ian if he'd be on this one.
Oh, no. I was talking to Ian a couple days ago, and he said that he'd want to. But I feel like we were talking about this last time that it would be too much to ask him to watch all the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
So we should probably just do one. Oh, did you watch? We're for this episode we are ranking all of the Spider-Man movies. So the 3 Sam Raimi ones, the two Andrew Garfield ones, the one cartoon one that everyone loves, and then the 2 MCU ones. So we're doing all of those in one episode. It's something stupid like 8 movies. So it's gonna be. I watched them all. Did you watch them all?
I've seen them all. I've seen all of the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans within a pretty recent time, and I've seen what was it called? Basically, I've seen them all pretty recently, up to like a year and a half ago, other than the Andrew Garfield ones, but I did a mild bit of research on the Andrew Garfield ones before commenting on them.
Okay, so before we decided to do this, I had only seen the cartoon Into the Spider-Verse and Not Far From Home, Homecoming. So those were the only 2 Spider-Man movies that I'd seen before this. So then because of that, I thought it'd be a great idea to watch all of the rest of them in a week. So I did that.
Were you able to complete it?
Yeah, no. I watched all of them, and what it came down to is because I had school a couple days and I had to deal with school, is one day I watched all the Sam Raimi movies. The next day I watched all the Amazing Spider-Man movies. And then last Saturday when we recorded the last episode, I watched Far From Home because I wanted to see it. And then I watched the cartoon one, or Into the Spider-Verse, sometime in the last week. I forget. The days have blended together. It's been a mix of doing nothing, boredom, and just Spider-Man movies. Like, if each one of those movies is 2 hours and there's 8 of them, that's like nearly 16 hours of Spider-Man that I've watched in the last week. So
sounds like you had a pretty good week.
Oh, it was busy. It was fun trying to figure out how to do schoolwork and that. But
by the way, did you
no, I did not do the thing. I did not have time.
Come on, Roberto. It doesn't even take that long. You could definitely do it live as we get there.
Oh, I do not think I have that ability.
To name a movie and look up its soundtrack and list me 5 songs?
Okay, well, see, now I feel like we're getting into this, and we should... Okay, so Truman on... We are not even talking about any of the movies yet. So, Truman on, like, a couple... Yesterday?
Yeah, maybe 2 days ago.
It feels like yesterday. The days are blurring together, I swear. So yesterday Truman texted me, and... Here.
You have to find the exact text.
I do have to find the exact text. Oh, this was a long text chain. So I have a great idea for a segment. My theory is that 75% of the time I can tell how good a movie is going to be based on the soundtrack. Then basically, so that was his idea. I thought it was a good idea. Then I think I called you, or we called about it.
I probably called you.
Yeah, because I don't see any more texts. But basically, I said that I was busy watching all of the Spider-Man movies and that I probably could not get it done. I think Truman sees the task of finding movies with songs in them that Truman would not know what movie they are just based on the songs to be a harder task than he thinks it is. It honestly probably only takes like an hour to do, but I just do not have that. I probably could have done that earlier today. Fuck.
It wouldn't have even taken an hour. I guarantee you, maximum amount of time, it would have taken you 30 minutes. Probable amount of time, 15 minutes.
Well, I'll do it next time. I'm sorry.
All right,
we had a big assignment this week of watching 8 movies. Well, I did.
Everyone, this week, next week, tune in because I will be guessing how good a film is based on its soundtrack and only its soundtrack, and I will be revealing my theory, tips, and tricks. So, tune in next week for episode 4.
This is the 3rd episode. I don't know if I mentioned that. This is episode 3. Oh, I did? Okay, cool. So
you should probably take that out. That's a little trying too hard.
What do you mean it's trying too hard? That it's episode 3?
I feel you were like, by the way, it's episode 3. It's episode 3.
Why is that? I'm just trying to let people know what episode it is. I don't think I mentioned it in the opening.
All right, whatever. We can move on. You're the editor-in-chief.
I'm going to leave that in.
All right. Do what you want, Roberto. Make your calls. I sacrificed creative liberties for not having to do any work for this show.
You're not even watching any of the movies either. You're just like, from my memory, I think this one was good. Anyway.
I have great recall, Roberto.
Okay.
I have fantastic recall.
Truman has a total recall of his memories of movies.
Oh, is that a movie reference on a movie podcast? Wow.
Thank you. Okay. So my list of the Spider-Man movies, I have a feeling that I might get some hate from this, from maybe Truman. I don't know. I feel like Truman isn't one to shame me, though, on my beliefs. On the other hand, though, I take that back. So I already mentioned. Okay, cool. So I think that my favorite Spider-Man movie is Homecoming.
Okay.
My second favorite is Into the Spider-Verse.
All right.
My third is Far From Home.
Dude.
Okay. Then we got
You're
the
making
first.
some interesting picks here.
I'll explain it. That's what this podcast is for. Then we have Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man 3, and Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Wow.
I would like to preface this with saying that the first 4 on my list of Homecoming, Into the Spider-Verse, Far From Home, and Spider-Man 1 are all very, very close grouped together. I would say that they are, like, if I had to point rank them, they would all be like 8s and up.
All right.
For different reasons. That's the other thing that I have with these all movies is that they're all very, very different types of Spider-Man movie, and I like them for very different. I like them for different reasons because, like, honestly, I was thinking about trying to put Amazing Spider-Man higher on the list because I like it, but like, I honestly think that the 2 Amazing Spider-Man movies are not that bad. People give them shit all the time, and they're not that bad. They're actually, like, pretty decent movies. They have, like, a couple, like, weird parts. I know that last time I talked to Truman about this, I shit talked like Pretty Boy, like Skater Boy Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. He's not that bad. I actually kind of like him in this movie, and he's a good actor. All of these are good movies. None of them is bad. There are a couple where it's like, okay, well, why did you do this? But during none of them where I was bored. I was like, the only reason of why I would be bored during the movie is because I watched them back to back to back. and that was probably the wrong thing to do. But they're all good movies. Some are just better than others, and some are a lot better than others.
All right. So I guess it's time for me to give my list. And I've been thinking and revising, actually, as you've been speaking. When my list goes, Spider-Man 3 is the best Spider-Man movie of all time. This is not a joke.
Okay.
This is accurate. And
Okay.
I think you missed the mark.
Okay.
But we'll talk about this later. So we got Spider-Man 3. Then I go to Spider-Man 1. And then here's what kind of surprised me is that actually I'm going to put Spider-Man Homecoming just above Spider-Man 2. And I'll explain why I did that later.
Okay.
And then after Spider-Man 2 comes Into the Spider-Verse. Then I'll go Far From Home, Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2.
Okay.
So
I'm writing this down, by the way.
there's my list. I'm pretty confident that that's a good list and it's the right list. So why is Homecoming your favorite? We're asking the same question. We are asking why on each of our number ones. I think you're ridiculous.
Okay.
For putting Homecoming as your first.
So
I really like Homecoming, but I think you're missing the mark in that Spider-Man Homecoming is just a really good Spider-Man movie. You know what I mean? There was no new invention from Spider-Man Homecoming. They didn't add something all that new. Of course, they added Tom Holland, instead of the other two boys. But I really don't think it's all that much different from any other Spider-Man movie, and I think you're not giving enough credit to Sam Raimi for inventing the genre of superhero film.
Okay, he did not invent the genre. There's been superhero films since forever.
He invented the genre of the modern superhero film. Name a superhero film that even comes close to being similar that came out before never mind, I take it back. 1 second. The Batman series was I would say the Batman series invented the genre of the modern superhero film, but Batman really is his own beast. And when people
now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like the goofiness and the campiness of those movies is the same as the Sam Raimi ones. Because Arnold Schwarzenegger being like, stop, or wait, what does he do? He's like, something, freeze. Right? And then he freezes all the people. That's very equal to where it's I don't know, what's something that, the thing about Sam Raimi's films is that they're funny movies. They're funny movies because they're goofy, and just the stuff that happens in them is just so absurd, and it makes no sense. And it's just why is that happening? That is absurd, and that's why they're funny. Right? It's not because anyone in the film is funny. It's not because they do funny things. The funny things that they do are absurd, and it's absurd to the point of where you're why would they do that? That makes no sense. That's the sort of funny in it. It's not them being I don't know, a human goofy, a human funny goof. I don't know how to describe. There's very different types of humor in comedy movies, And all of these movies are different. I would say that if you had to arrange them on a scale, like Homecoming and like the MCU movies are like a very like grounded reality sort of goofy, and they're very like relatable, I would say. And then Amazing Spider-Man is in the middle, and then the Sam Raimi movies are just in like their own territory of what the fuck is happening.
So, also, I don't believe you've seen any other Sam Raimi movies.
Oh no.
So, if you watch The Evil Dead, I think you really start to get what he's going for. Specifically, I think his style is pretty much spelled out for you in Army of Darkness, the third one.
Okay, well, I haven't seen it.
So, I did a little research as you were talking because I disagree with you.
Okay.
And then I realized I disagree with myself, but still disagree with you.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
We begin to give a little timeline of superhero films. We begin with Adam West Batman in 1966. What?
No, nothing. Continue.
So, there may have been more notable ones that came. There may have been some other ones that came before. I'm really focusing on the really, really notable big moments because the 1966 Batman show sort of made it to where comic books were more brought to the forefront, I would say. Up until then, they were all just kind of read by teens and not really understood by anybody else. And people began to kind of understand comics after Batman 66. But the problem, of course, with Batman 66 is it makes a really, really dark and menacing hero, anti-hero, into something pretty light and silly. And so
that has
it
like
kind of
an aerosol spray can though. Shark be gone.
Right. Which I love 1966 Batman. Do not get me wrong, I love 1966 Batman, but obviously in a kind of B movie so bad it's good way.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the Sam Raimi movies.
I think you're entirely wrong.
Okay.
Now, then to move on, we have a sort of more reinvention of a more respectable superhero film with Superman the movie in 1978. So a little over, I believe that's 12 years exactly after 1966 Batman. Now, the Superman films, though, are still generally thought of as kids' movies. I believe they were all rated PG, and they were pretty, happy, fun films. Now, then we move on to the Batman films of Tim Burton, which I didn't get a date on the first Batman film, just because I was busy looking up the last Batman film. 1989, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
like
Batman...
late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, 1989 is the first Batman film, and that, again, reinvents the genre. So each of these that I'm saying kind of reinvent the genre, and so that 1989 Batman film really makes it less of a family thing and more of a, teenager thing. Because it's still, I believe, PG-13, but it's no longer happy, fun. It is a little bit more dark and menacing, which always Batman brings to the forefront. And then we have these mistakes that I am so glad exist, but are mistakes. I own them on DVD to the best of my knowledge.
Oh no.
I like them. I will watch them again. But they are not quality films. They are laughable and fun films.
Please tell me what these
Which
are.
these are Batman and Robin and Batman Forever, which
Ooh.
I
Is
believe
that the one where he has, like, the nipples on his suit?
Batman Forever, I believe, is the nipples on the suit one.
Gotcha.
No, that one might be, I don't know. One of the two has the nipples on the suit.
Yeah, and it has,
and
like, the close-up Dutch angles on him, like his crotch and his ass, right?
right.
Gotcha.
Now,
Love those movies.
at the same time, Batman and Robin, I think, really is a pretty solid sign of the times as a pretty solid 80s action film. You know, it's cheesy, it's ridiculous, it's campy, it's funny and silly. Whilst Batman Forever, I don't think can get really that same benefit. Batman Forever is absolutely ridiculous in every way. So then, after all of that, in, I believe, 2001, we have, I believe, the first modern superhero movie. I really don't think the formula laid out by Sam Raimi in Spider-Man 1 has been changed at all in, all of the superhero movies since. Now, of course, there are
I have a question.
some superhero movies that do some different stuff, right? Like we've got Guardians of the Galaxy. That's a little bit different. But I feel like the solo superhero film formula was created by Sam Raimi and has been kept since Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1. Yeah.
How is Sam Raimi's formula different from the Batman movies? How did Guardians of the Galaxy do something different than Sam Raimi? And how do the Marvel movies do the same thing as Sam Raimi?
So
what's like the plot structure of all of these? Like what are you talking about when you're like this is
a huge question that you're asking. But let's start with this. So Batman 1989 is a lot darker, right? And it had to be darker, and it was supposed to be, what it was. And I think the Batman 1989 film pretty much set an idea for any DC film going forth. I still believe that they are in the 80s. Now, the thing is, Christopher Nolan, of course, tries to make it more grounded in reality and all of that, which is super cool. And I think his films are by far the best Batman films, of course. However, I don't think they stray quite as much from the ideas presented in 1989 Batman. I don't know. I'll take that back. However, still, I feel like the kind of mood and the kind of vibe set forth in 1989 Batman is still what DC is kind of sticking to, and only recently with Wonder Woman and Aquaman have they really kind of tried to move on. I think Suicide Squad also does something a little different, but I don't know, they just very mistake. So
Okay.
let's move on to your big question of Spider-Man really sets up this idea of all of the gaining powers, figuring it out, and in such a really tight timetable where not a second is wasted, a very simple but elegant character arc, your love interest, and all of that kind of jazz, right?
Okay.
I don't know that all of that was really the same in the Superman movies. I feel like the Superman movies have a very different pace than the Spider-Man films. So he kind of sets in motion this pacing of a superhero film, the basic story structure of a superhero film. And I feel like that was definitely kept in place by Iron Man, right?
Okay, but how... Okay, so I have not seen the first Batman movie, but is the first Batman movie different than the Sam Raimi thing, like the formula that Sam Raimi does? Because like I have not seen it, so I'm just going off of what you're gonna tell me. But
as far as beats, I wouldn't say it's too terribly far off, but at the same time, I wouldn't say it's that similar. You know what I mean? Especially even in just like both Sam Raimi and Tim Burton really do come from this kind of horror background, right?
Okay.
But Sam Raimi doesn't keep that as much in the Spider-Man films, except, you know, there's a couple sequences specifically in Spider-Man 2 that are very, very Raimi's directing a horror movie sequences, which specifically the sequence I'm referring to is
where his arms come alive?
Yeah, while he's on the operating table. It's really a horror movie sequence. So both of these directors come from that horror movie background, but Sam Raimi makes it a much lighter color palette and a much more, you know, this is what good and evil is, you know what I mean? Which Batman can never do, because Batman's kind of the opposite. Batman's more like noir. Yeah, Batman is entirely functioning in the gray area, and that's kind of the whole point of Batman. That's what we like about Batman, is that he's a vigilante, and really we don't really have this kind of what really is good and bad. We just kind of, we like Batman because we like Batman, and we don't like the other guys because they don't really have as much of a conscience with it. Whereas with Sam Raimi, he really stresses that with great power comes great responsibility, which he super stresses. But here's the thing, he does it in a way where the superheroes are good, but it's not lame. You know what I mean? It's still cool, it's still all of that, but it's not kid stuff. So the way he's able to find that medium and walk that line, I think really sets up the kind of tone that has been stuck to by all of the Marvel movies since then.
Yeah, because like people get bipped and they die, but it's still like a kid's movie. And like there's like stakes and violence, but it's not necessarily like an adult movie. They're still kids' movies?
Yeah, it's very much, it's set up what the PG-13 style of a positive role model superhero movie, whilst Batman is not necessarily that much of a positive role model, and that's why we love Batman.
Okay.
And so, I think, of course, Marvel movies have grown and grown and grown in their lore, which Sam Raimi never got the chance to do, and I don't know if he ever would have. But we have this kind of situation where Marvel movies do keep advancing and keep changing a little bit, but I think every time, if you keep matching them up back to that original Spider-Man 1 by Sam Raimi, they don't stray too far. Same with if you take like a Iron Man 2 and try that against Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 3, I don't think it's all that far. Of course, you have different characters and pretty different styles, and the way that I can prove that,
like, beats of the story and like the gist of like what's happening, if you like reduce it down to like one sentence plot points, you could, they would probably be the same. Is what you're saying.
At some point, if you reduce anything down enough, it just becomes the same.
Well, yeah,
but
because that's what the hero's journey is. But like the overall like feeling of these movies, you're saying is the same, and that Sam Raimi invented them, or that feeling.
Yes, I think the current vibe of superhero films is pretty standardized and created by Sam Raimi. Now, here's my proof. Spider-Man Homecoming, really, I don't think there's much different between Spider-Man Homecoming and the original Spider-Man.
Okay.
Other than, I believe, Spider-Man Homecoming edits out the origin story, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it does.
So, if we take out the origin story, we still have one main villain that's doing pretty similarly villainous things, other than, you know, the fact that the Vulture is running guns in this film, and weapons and all of that. And he has a very specific plot, right? Which I will say Willem Dafoe, I don't think, had a very specific plot other than maybe kill Spider-Man. And then also we have the identity figure out, and also we have the situation of the bad guy is super close to the superhero. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Both of them are the fathers of one of his friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the kind of final battle, which, of course, in Spider-Man Homecoming is taken to a bit of another level, but at the same time, it's...
So, here's my question for you.
Yeah.
So, sure. I'll play with you. Sam Raimi invented this whole, like, sort of plot structure, right?
I don't know that he invented the plot structure itself, but let's call it he invented the modern superhero film, which I think that's the best phrasing of my point.
Okay. So he invents the modern superhero film. Why so usually whenever you invent something, later iterations of it are better, right? So if you take like the first iPhone, that thing's a piece of shit, right? Compared to my current iPhone, right? Which has like 3 cameras and it's all fancy and whatever, right? So it's clearly a lot better of a product, but it's still an iPhone and it still generally does the same things. So why do you think that the Sam Raimi films still hold supreme over these other films? Because I really like these other films, or specifically the MCU ones in Spider-Verse, because I feel... Well, it's mainly like specific character things and things that happen in their movies rather than like overall like feelings of the story, because they're all Spider-Man movies. They all have the same characters. They all have the same sort of like general things that happens. It's Spider-Man, he swings around buildings and he shoots webs at thing and he fights crime, right? It's still the same things, just how they go about them is what's different. And that's what I like the differences of.
So my rebuttal to you there is, I think with movies it's a lot different, because we do hold the original type of thing as to a higher standard, and I don't really understand how to explain it, but there's a reason why The Godfather is on so many people's like top 100 movies list or top 10 movies list, and the mob movies that might be arguably better and newer are not. You see what I'm saying? There is this value on invention in movies that I don't necessarily think is as valued in technology, like you're saying. And so I have other examples, I guess. I'm looking at my DVD collection. You know, there's a reason why we like the older slasher films, why we like 80s action movies and things like that better than their remakes. Now, with Spider-Man, we're dealing with something different, though, because Spider-Man is not a remake, it's a reboot, of course, and we haven't really seen a reboot or remake that hasn't gotten it all wrong in some ways. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, because as I said on the opening, all of these movies are good movies. Like, they're entertaining in their own way. None of them is just like, Jesus Christ, please kill me.
Right. So that's where I think there is an argument to be made. However, at the same time, I still very much value that invention and creation, especially, you know, think about this. Citizen Kane is so old and pretty out of date in a lot of ways, right? But it's still considered the greatest movie of all time. You know what I mean?
How is it out of date?
Dude, we could go down this rabbit hole. Do we want to keep going down this rabbit hole? I think I made my point. Maybe Citizen Kane is a terrible example.
Well, I don't... Why do you think movies...
I think there is still something cool about the original, which I think there's this element of cool, I guess. And I can't really place it any other way, of that. I don't know. Sam Raimi is, to me, a cooler situation than the whole huge Marvel industry that's now owned by Sony. The whole huge Marvel industry that's now owned by Disney. It's such a corporate and formalized and assured success. I feel like it's almost like comparing alternative rock to pop. You know what I mean?
Okay.
If you kind of get what I'm saying. And at least that's the way it feels to me, I guess. I'm not sure it's entirely accurate, and I'm not sure there's much merit to my criticism of what is cooler for me, you know, versus what isn't cooler for me. But yeah, I think that there is a little bit more earnestness or truth in the Spider-Man films, and you can see it through the campiness. None, never, no way would anything like this be put out today in the Marvel machine. You know what I mean? And that's why we still see indie movies every now and then that do work in that campiness. And even also Mad Max Fury Road is a pretty solid example. There were some pretty cool and campy things in it that, you know, preserve that fun of what's fun about movies. And I really argue so often that campiness is not a bad thing, and if it's done well and done right, it's actually a very, very good and positive thing. And okay. I think all of the Sam Raimi movies, they know what they're doing, they know when they're being campy, they know how they're doing it right, and so it is able to add the fun without taking away from the overall vibe. And, yeah.
Anytime that anything campy happened in the first three movies, like, I just started laughing. Like, it was just like, ha, that's stupid. Or, well, not, like, it was just like, that's, like, absurd. Or just, like, it made me, like, I don't know. It was just like, this is a movie. And I'm watching a movie.
Okay. In the immortal words of, I believe, Quentin Tarantino.
Okay.
I have never forgotten that I'm watching a movie when I'm watching a movie. And in the immortal words of Sean Gallagher, our film teacher in high school, what is it? He said something along the lines of like, oh, modern Hollywood, they want to make your acid trip of a movie where you zone out and you don't really have to pay attention or think at all, and then you end the movie and you walk out and it was like, oh, that was a fun one.
Okay, but that's all of these movies. None of these movies try to challenge your thinking in any way.
This is true, but I think my point is still made, even though it's not to the full degree. I don't think we are really, really worried about being removed from the fact that we are watching a man spider on TV right now. It's ridiculous. It's awesome. It's super fun. And I think that the campiness adds something. I don't think it subtracts.
Okay, I would agree, but I would say that it makes the films into different films than other other superhero movies. Like, because they're so campy, it adds another layer of like jokiness or well, okay. Here's my explanation. So, I actually kind of like the Star Wars prequels, like a good amount. But the reason that I like them is not because of the actual content that's in the movies. No. Everything that's in the movies is dumb and stupid, and it like nothing about the plot makes any sense in any way. But because of the internet and various subreddits, literally every line in that movie has been made into a meme or in a joke in some way, that every like 2 minutes in the movie I will laugh because I'll be like, oh, that was a funny thing on the internet, and I'll remember all of these other things that I saw on the internet. And just because that I know all those things, that line has now become funny to me, because now I've realized how dumb that line is, right? And sure, maybe I liked them as a kid, but now I just think that they're funny, stupid movies, and I watch them because I think they're funny and stupid, right? And I'll still watch them because it's entertaining, but I won't watch them to be like, yeah, let's watch a Star Wars movie. No, I'll just watch Empire Strikes Back because I like that movie for being a good Star Wars movie. These are just stupid movies set in the world of Star Wars, and I feel like those are somewhat similar for the Sam Raimi ones. Like,
do you really think Empire Strikes Back is not campy at all? Do you really think that Empire Strikes Back has no stupid lines that are totally memeable? Like, I think you are actually agreeing with my point. The reason why you like these Star Wars films is because there is something cool and honest about them, and they are able to balance their campiness in a way that is pleasing to you. No, the originals.
I don't think the originals are campy. I just think that they're like the first ones that set it up. And so they are like, this is what the genre is. And then now, since everybody else is doing it, then it becomes campy because that's what everybody does.
We have hit an agree to disagree moment where there is no further arguing. We've met the immovable object and the unstoppable force. I think we fundamentally disagree on this one.
Okay, so now that we've done with Spider-Man movies or superhero movies in retrospective, do you want to argue about the specific movies of why we put what where?
Sure.
And specifically of why we like certain things?
Let's take it a little bit more simply at a time. let's work through.
After we argue for 47 minutes about what movies are.
So let's take it a little bit simpler to each film series as its own.
Okay.
Which film series would you like to tackle first?
I'll tackle the MCU ones because I like these ones the best.
Okay, so I think we both agreed that Homecoming was better than Far From Home.
Yes.
So there's really not much to say there.
Why do you like Homecoming? Because I like Homecoming for very specific reasons that I don't think you would be able to. Okay, so as you know, and probably most of everyone who is listening to this knows, I am not from Austin. Okay.
Yeah.
And I like this movie because I don't know, it just sort of gives me a feeling of like, this is really dumb, but like obviously I would not be Spider-Man in this alternate universe of where I would still live in New York, but I feel like the day-to-day actions of Peter Parker in the MCU movies are stuff that I would do and that I do, right? And so I can relate to that. And the other movies don't do this, right? Because Andrew Garfield is too cool, and I feel like I'm a little bit cooler than whoever the first one is.
Tobey Maguire? You think you're cooler than Tobey Maguire?
Yeah.
I feel like Tobey Maguire got invited to parties in high school.
Okay. Well, anyway. I like the MCU movies because I don't know, like they just make me happy. And watching, and I like, here's one thing. All of the songs in the Spider-Man MCU movies, I like Spider-Man's main theme in those movies, I can like particularly remember. And I've only seen Homecoming once, and I've seen Far From Home once. But I can remember the theme from those two movies of like Spider-Man's main theme. I've seen 3 Sam Raimi movies and 2 of the other ones, and I have no idea what their themes would be, right? But I feel like the music like works with the Marvel, like works with whatever Tom Holland is doing in those movies a lot better. And so that's one thing.
I would disagree. I think the score
what's the
in the original Spider-Man films is fantastic.
Okay, well, what is it? Hum it.
Well,
can you remember it?
I don't think there is necessarily a specific theme.
Okay, well, that's the entire point of a soundtrack.
Okay, whatever. I think specifically the orchestral beats in Spider-Man 3 are fantastic. And Venom's theme, I know for certain. Venom's theme is ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. It's so good.
That just blew over my head. I do not remember that.
Oh my god. When he first wakes up and he's like, I feel powerful. And it just keeps going, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh man, you missed out. And there are just certain great swells in the music that really hit the note and just hit that spot just right, like a meal you've been craving.
That's how I feel about the Tom Holland ones.
Now here's a big difference between you and I. You watched Homecoming way before you ever watched the Sam Raimi movies, and this is something I do argue about a lot.
Oh, Homecoming? Yeah, okay, never mind.
This is something I do argue about a lot, and I think nostalgia does sometimes cloud our judgment, in that I watched the original Spider-Man probably 3 years after it came out. Something like that.
So 2005?
Yeah, and the first Spider-Man film I saw in theaters was Spider-Man 3. Um, I had terrible seats, but it didn't matter. That movie's so sick. And so I do have this nostalgia for those superhero films that you don't. But at the same time, you do have that first time that itch was scratched. Your Spider-Man itch was scratched. Was Homecoming, and I think that's why it's your favorite. Because Homecoming and Spider-Man 1, I don't think are much different at all as far as when you compare them to the times, other than Spider-Man 1 has a little bit more campiness. I think Spider-Man 1 has more iconic lines. And I think Spider-Man 1 was the first to do it. So those are the reasons why I hold Sam Raimi's movies. Also, I like Sam Raimi as a director, and I can't even tell you who directed Spider-Man Homecoming, but I'm about to look it up.
I know that the people who did Homecoming are the same. So back in the day, Donald Glover had this YouTube channel whenever he was at NYU called Derek Comedy, and not Donald Glover had nothing. Well, he was in the movie, but his friends who did Derek Comedy with him are the ones who directed the movie.
So the director is John Watts.
Yeah.
Who has directed nothing else I've seen.
Yeah.
It's cool that, we're able to see lesser known directors directing Marvel films, but I think part of the reason why is because Marvel has such a tight grasp on what the films are going to turn out like that the director really can't mess it up a lot of the times.
Well, but I feel like it's a very different feel of what's happening, because I feel like the types of comedy that are in Homecoming are different from all the other Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, is that not a tonal difference then?
Yeah, somewhat. I guess I would agree that that's a tonal difference. You may have disproven a small part of my points. But I don't know. I don't feel that the comedy in Spider-Man Homecoming is laugh out loud funny. It's more, ha! One good ha, right? Whereas,
well, okay, I take that back, because the little you know how they have the one their high school's version of Chaos,
their school news program?
Yeah. The school news program makes me laugh every time.
Okay. Alright. Whereas I think also, I don't know what it is. There is this huge emotional reaction I get from certain scenes in Spider-Man, specifically 1 and 3. And you know what? All 3 of them have some really good emotional scenes for me where I want to shout at the TV. You know what I mean? Whereas I didn't get that same feeling from any moment in the MCU Spider-Mans. I really... Dude, I think I gasped this third time watching, probably fourth time watching Spider-Man 3 when Peter Parker hits Mary Jane. I have seen that 4 times. I know it's coming, and still I gasp and I'm like, oh my gosh. I also feel like there are some specific... I feel like the original trilogy has some really good iconic sequences that are just like really specific sequences that just work so well. And truthfully, the one with the most of those sequences is Spider-Man 2, even though that's my least favorite of the Raimi films.
So, that's funny that you say that, because most people hold Spider-Man 2, from what I've heard, most people hold Spider-Man 2 as, like, the best Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
A lot of people consider Spider-Man 2 still the best superhero film of all time.
Okay, well, I think they're dumb. Because my biggest problem with Spider-Man 2 is he just loses his ability, like, halfway through the movie. He's like, oh, I can't shoot webs anymore, and it's never explained. Like, he's just like, I just can't, they just won't work. And throughout the entire movie, he's just like, I don't know, my webs, like, they work whenever I'm fighting people, but whenever I'm just swinging, and then it's like, oh, no web. And it's like, it's like a plot point that's in there to, like, be a plot point, but it revolves around nothing else, it impacts nothing else, and it makes no sense to me.
I don't like that, personally. However, I'm about to give you your reason to go rewatch Spider-Man 2. I believe that him not being able to shoot webs is a pretty darn airtight metaphor for either not being able to get it up or premature ejaculation.
Okay.
I'm not joking. Rewatch the film. I think you will see it. Because the reason why is it's very, very, very heavily tied to his relationship with Mary Jane. I think it is pretty solidly tied to his relationship with Mary Jane. And I think his not being able to shoot webs is I don't know about metaphor, but pretty much shows you the beats of where he is with Mary Jane at that point in time, because Mary Jane is entirely the focus of Spider-Man 2.
That made no, like, but like, whenever he's fighting people, they work. It's like only in, like, the most, like, I was like, oh, he's just swinging away now, and then they don't work, or he's like climbing up a wall and he falls down, like, and like, it's just like, it's like, it feels like it's only there to, like, be like, oh no, his webs aren't working, and then he's like, okay, they work now, and then they work. Like, it just, this is the problem. Okay, Spider-Man 1, perfect. I like that movie is dumb and perfect and funny and great, and I like everything about it. My favorite part about it is Willem Dafoe, because he's like,
you can't not love Willem Dafoe, but
like,
I feel
Sam Raimi
the same
was like,
way.
Be crazy, and then Willem Dafoe was like, oh, okay. Like, whenever he, like, becomes the Green Goblin, and then he's like, ah, and he, like, jumps out the window and is broken, and he's, like, hissing, and he's, like, crouching, like, that's not, like, I don't know if it's supposed to be scary or weird or whatever. That just made me start laughing, and I missed the entire next scene because I was just still laughing for, like, minutes on end, and he, like, grabs the person, and he, like, throws them away, and he's like, back to formula. Like, it's so dumb and stupid, right? And that movie's great, right? So I have no faults with that movie. I just think, I don't know, like, for me, those are comedy movies. Like, all of Sam Raimi's movies are comedy movies first, and then, like, superhero films second. Because just so many dumb things happen in them that are funny, and it's, like, absurdist funny, and those are just comedy films to me. Those aren't necessarily, like, fully superhero films. Whereas, like, the MCU movies and the Andrew Garfield movies are flipped. Where, like, they're superhero movies, and then they're comedy movies.
So, I again want to bring up that you have not seen the Evil Dead trilogy, and you don't necessarily understand, in my opinion, the way that Sam Raimi's tone works. Because Sam Raimi, I believe, there was some YouTuber who kind of talked about this. I think it might have been, like, Every Frame a Painting or somebody like that.
Yeah.
And he talks about how Sam Raimi said that the two audience reactions, something along these lines, I'm sure I'm butchering this quote, that you really get to see and feel are laughter and horror. And when he's able to actually scare people, he laughs, you know what I mean? He gets that enjoyment of, ha ha ha, I got y'all, you know what I mean? And I feel like, and it's the same thing with comedy, which, again, I don't know who I'm quoting at this point, whether it's Sam Raimi or Every Frame of Painting or any other YouTuber who is talking about this. And I don't know how I'm paraphrasing, but I think my point gets across in that he doesn't believe that there is a wrong emotional reaction, to the best of my knowledge, and he instead is just going for anyone at any time in a way that I think works really well, in that very few movies are able to scare you and make you laugh. Zombieland is funny, it's not scary. You know, perfect example. There are plenty of other horror comedies that are exactly the same. Evil Dead 2 is scary and funny and surreal and cool and weird. And I think that sort of thing is taken to these Spider-Man films as well. And so I think you brought up that the casting is so key. I think the casting in Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 3, also some, Spider-Man 2 somewhat as well, but specifically Spider-Man 1, the casting is so awesome, and I don't think that Spider-Man Homecoming matches the awesomeness of the casting. Zendaya will never match, what's her name? Why am I forgetting her name? The original Mary Jane Watson. I'm looking it up right now. It is... Shoot. I didn't click on it. Kirsten Dunst. I think Willem Dafoe...
Seems like just so gray, though. Like, to me, she just seems like, and that's her entire character. She's like, I don't know if I like Peter Parker. I'm gonna mess with his emotions because I don't know if I like him, and I don't know if he likes me, and
I fall in love with her every time. I fall in love with her every time.
That's like me that entire movie. I was just like,
man.
She frustrates me in those movies.
I missed
It's just like every movie is just like, just do one thing or the other. Like, just stop.
Okay. I also want to address some other things. I've been sitting on this for a while. We've gone down 12 rabbit holes since whatever we were talking about.
So many rabbit holes. We should focus on like the individual movies. We have not given Andrew Garfield any play at all.
Specifically, I think we both agree on Andrew Garfield that everybody gives him so much crap, and they were really not bad movies.
No.
Skater Boy, Peter Parker,
he has his place.
Was a choice, and I'm glad it existed, and it worked. And yeah, I rewatched one of the skate scenes from The Amazing Spider-Man, the original, and I actually saw it reviewed by, I believe, Tony Hawk for its reality. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's fantastic that these videos exist on the internet where lawyers criticize law films and doctors criticize doctor films. I think I even saw a jewel thief criticizing Ocean's 11. Okay. You know what I mean? It's cool. I'm glad this video exists. These videos exist, but to the point where Tony Hawk talks about Andrew Garfield skating in Amazing Spider-Man. Oh, I'm so glad these things exist. But here we have, you brought up your nostalgia for New York.
Yeah.
I don't think New York is at all matched in Spider-Man Homecoming compared to the original trilogy. The original trilogy, it has pretty much defined what I think of when I think New York.
Okay, but none of those... Okay, so here's the thing. None of the... Okay. The actual best movies that I feel like are like, oh, this is New York, right? Is the Andrew Garfield ones. Because I feel like every other one, I'm like, it like kind of looks like New York, but this isn't like a specific place in New York. Like all of the Sam Raimi ones, it just has skyline shots, and then the rest are like not New York.
But I feel like the culture is represented, or at least whatever I imagine the culture of New York is, based on only having been there once and never having lived there. The way I see New York and all of my impressions of people from New York are based off of the original Spider-Man series. Dude, here's the thing. When it's one film or just one series of films, yes, I get it. It's ridiculous to base things off of that. However, when you take a collection of media that all is the same, specifically, think about did you see that New York Snapple commercial?
No.
That was like, we're New York, and we like this. We also like the refreshing taste of Snapple, or
Fuck
whatever,
that.
right?
Fuck that.
The thing is that all of these things, they all are still the exact same culture of New York that I have seen in Spider-Man, and I think Spider-Man is the best fully encompassing of this New York stereotype that I see always played.
You're a punk rocker, right? You're very anti-establishment. You hate the government. You like putting pins in your hair, and you want to put like eggs to like hairdo your hair, and you like play like giant like metal. I don't know, like you're just like very like metal songs and whatever, and you're just like and you like fucking The Clash or Black Flag or whatever, or right? That's what you're saying. Like for me to New York, like so, that's what. You're like doing like that. You're like doing like that. Hey, you're walking here, but like for New York, and that that's not at all what it is. Stop. That's not at all what it is. That's like that.
It's so New York. It's New York. Hey, I'm walking here.
It's like, oh, you're from Texas. You must ride horses. Like you must own guns. Like that's what that is.
So here's the thing. When you made all of those punk rock references, you got very few things wrong. I love The Clash. I love Black Flag. If someone were to...
But I like those things too. But I'm not a punk rock person.
And if someone were to put, whatever you said in their hair or on their clothes and stuff like that, when people show up to the punk rock shows I go to, dressed like that, I'm like... sick. That's awesome. I'm glad that there are people who still want to go to the extremes that don't need to be gone to anymore. I show up to all my punk rock shows in a white shirt, sometimes a flannel, and jeans, And there are plenty of other people who go full makeup and all of that stuff, and it's awesome. I'm so glad that they do it. It's cool. It fits the vibe, But hey, maybe it's in the same way of people are going and fitting these stereotypes, right, that have been laid out by the media and by people who never actually were there and never actually understood it. And none of us actually went to a real Black Flag show when Black Flag was super the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
None of us were really there. We're all just emulating the feeling that we get from it and the things we like about what we understand the punk rock movement to be. At this point in time, there aren't any true punk rockers left, really, if you want to think about it like that. You know?
Okay.
Because all the other thing is like, yeah, Henry Rollins is still alive, the lead singer of Black Flag, but he's... I don't know that Henry Rollins is the best example. He's still punk rock in my book.
Okay.
But like...
We've gone off on so many tangents. We need to focus back because we've not given like our opinions on a lot of these movies.
Okay.
What do you like/dislike about Homecoming? Why do you think it like?
So
what's your overall opinion of the movie?
There's the saying that again, going back to our teacher Gallagher, that things are hermaphroditically sealed, hermetically sealed. They are perfect, they can't be touched, and they are in a glass box. And that is somewhat what I feel about the MCU Spider-Mans. Now, there's nothing wrong with it necessarily, but there isn't that same truth in my opinion.
Okay. So you think that they're all good movies and they're all pretty good, but they're just like,
I really think the only possibly bad film we have on this docket is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And even then, I don't think it's bad.
No. I don't think it's that bad either.
I'll probably never watch it again.
No.
But at the same time.
Oh, God. I just remember that I saw that I've seen that movie twice. That was actually the first Spider-Man movie that I saw.
Really?
I saw that when it came out in 2012, yeah.
Interesting.
Or 2014. Ooh.
Yeah, I have seen every Spider-Man on this list in theaters other than Spider-Man 1, 2, and Homecoming.
Interesting. Okay.
And Homecoming was kind of a protest not go see, I think. I also might just have not gotten around to seeing it at that time. I don't know when it came out.
Okay.
But yeah, just kind of that protest of like, oh my God, how many times do we gotta have Spider-Man? How many times? How many times do we need a new Spider-Man? And then, yeah, I think I had really a lot of like, why do I need to watch another Spider-Man movie? We've seen Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man. We've got it covered. We did it. You know, and nothing's ever going to beat Tobey Maguire. And my friend Carter, who is a huge fan of Spider-Man, has a Spider-Man tattoo on him.
He does. I've seen it.
Yeah. He said, dude, for real, give Spider-Man Homecoming a shot. You know, go watch it. I really think you're missing out, bud. It's a great Spider-Man movie, you know.
It's really good. It's I guess my favorite. Here's the one thing that I think Homecoming does better than any of the other movies.
What?
In Homecoming, only one person gets killed, and Spider-Man wasn't there to stop him. In all of these other movies, buildings get like knocked into and destroyed and stuff, and like even in Far From Home, like stuff gets destroyed and like stuff is collapsing and falling on people, and people like get murked all the time. And this is my particular problem with the Andrew Garfield movies. And Spider-Man like seemingly does not do his best to help everybody. In Homecoming, he like is very clearly like a good person and trying to help everybody and like trying to do like the most that he can for everybody. And in the Andrew Garfield movies, it feels like his like particular thing is like, I'm a cool like millennial person and I'm gonna swing around and shoot webs and solve crime, right? Instead of like protecting the citizens. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why I really like Homecoming more than any other one, is that he's just sort of like protecting people.
I think you really
people.
see that Tobey Maguire sees the burden of being Spider-Man, and I don't know that he'd have that same level of burden if not everyone he was able to save. I think that's part of the burden that he carries around a lot, and it's shown a lot.
He gets thrown into buildings, and like parts of the buildings just fall onto the sidewalk and kill and me knowing how busy those streets are would kill one rock would kill like a person, and then like the giant things that are falling would kill like 20 people. Like, he's not trying to save those people. Like, he's like throwing people like into buildings and whatnot, and it's like that's not trying to like protect the citizens of New York, really. Like, you're not trying to, like, I don't know. Like, during the entire time, like, oh, like in the third movie, he gets like knocked on, like, part of like an entire like face of a wall falls off and just lands on the street, and like that's not like anything
Roberto,
at all.
From your personal experience, how hard is it to be Spider-Man?
Very hard.
Like, Roberto, how hard is it to hold up a building, do you think? From your personal experience, how many times have you held up a building?
Okay, that's not what I'm saying.
You,
but like,
you get what I'm saying? Like, at some point, each movie has their own, just like each movie has their own definition of close-up, wide, and all of that. They have their own shot scale. Each of these movies also has their own morality scale. I guess you can prefer the morality scale in the MCU Spider-Mans for sure. That's fair.
Well, yeah, because Spider-Man is like lawful good. He's But I still
like
feel wants to follow the rules and like help everybody. Like, that's one of the problems that I have with Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, is he just goes around assaulting people. In like the first movie, he's just like, I don't like you because you killed my uncle, and then like goes around and like he's like interrupting people who are like mugging people. He's like, oh, you're not the person, and then he just leaves them to like continue their mugging or whatnot, or like, these are still criminals.
Well, Spider-Man's like, also a teenager, and he's supposed to have flaws. He's in high school, unless you subscribe also, unless we want to talk about...
Hey, Truman, with great power comes great responsibility. That's the fucking problem with Spider-Man, is yes, he is a teenager, he is in high school, but he is faced with trying to have to, like, save everyone. That's the entire point of Spider-Man.
You are saying key things, though. Trying. And the whole point...
Okay, but Andrew Garfield doesn't try. He just, like...
I'm not arguing for Andrew Garfield here. We both pretty much agree where Andrew Garfield lands. Okay. Now, we have not talked at all about Into the Spider-Verse, and I feel like it should be
I just think it's
addressed.
Perfect. I think it's great. Nothing's wrong with this movie. The one thing that I have against this movie is that it has chromatic aberration on literally every single pixel in that movie has chromatic aberration, and it kills me because my glasses already give me chromatic aberration, and it sucks just everything having that. But I understand that it's a stylistic of the movie, and I understand that that's why that is, and I love that and that's great. Honestly, Into the Spider-Verse was going to be my first, but I was on a run yesterday and I was thinking about it, and I was just coming up with all these reasons of why I really like Homecoming, and I was like, oh, I guess I really do like Homecoming more. But honestly, Spider-Verse is the best. If you were saying the whole thing with like hermetically sealed, like, that's Spider-Verse. Like, it's so good and perfect.
How many times have you seen Spider-Verse?
Twice.
Okay, because my first viewing of Spider-Verse, I did really enjoy it. I didn't know that it really lived up to as much hype as it got, but I did really like it. And it took me some time to really see what all I really liked about it. And, one of the things I really like about it is seeing depressed, divorced Spider-Man.
Yep.
That's fantastic. I love that that's in there. We've never seen something like that, and only in Spider-Verse are we able to do something like that. That movie just crams in
so many different things. Like, it's just everything, and it has so many ties to all the other movies.
However, upon second viewing, once the novelty of it all wore off, that it was new and cool and different, I really don't think it was worth watching a second time. I think once you watch it once, you get it and it's kind of done. Whereas, I guess that's the thing. That's my real, at the end of the day, kind of criteria on these Spider-Man movies is how much I want to watch them again. And pretty much in order, I would watch 3 and 2 almost equally again, but I'd watch 3 again just a little bit more likely than Spider-Man 1.
I would honestly watch Spider-Man 1 again just because it's so goofy and so stupid.
And then
Homecoming is my feel-good movie, though.
I would watch Homecoming again, third best, and then Spider-Man 2 fourth. I don't think any of the other ones I'd watch again, other than I am a little bit curious about Amazing Spider-Man, and I do kind of want to watch that one again out of curiosity and more of a refreshing my memory thing, rather than
I actually liked a couple things about that movie.
Man, I want to rewatch this and feel this thing again,
Yeah. Andrew Garfield reminds me of Hayden Christensen. Like, they are the same person in my eyes. They sound the same. They have the same facial, expressions. They are the same person.
Who's Hayden Christensen?
Anakin.
Oh. Okay.
Watch that movie again and then be like, this is the dude from Star Wars. And they will be the same.
God. I just saw a picture of him from when he was
in
Star Wars.
They are the same.
Man, they look a lot alike.
It's that look, them looking alike is not the begin is just the beginning of the iceberg. They sound the same, especially in the second one they sound the same, but the way that they say things and how they go about situations is they're the same person. And this is coming from someone who has watched Revenge of the Sith many times. They're the same person.
That's funny. But yeah, I really think that as much as Spider-Verse was awesome when it came out, and for people who like animation, I don't know that I've seen better animation in a movie, period. I'm sure if I thought a little bit longer about all my favorite animated films and really thought about what my favorite animation is, I might be able to come up with something else, but I really think the animation in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is stellar. However, art style only gets me so far. Same with cinematography. I don't like a film that is just really, really beautiful in its cinematography and doesn't really have that much else. That's why I really, really, really don't like what's it called? What's the movie I'm thinking of, Roberto, the gay one?
What?
Timothy Chalamet, Call Me By Your Name. I don't like that movie because I really don't think there's much to it other than good cinematography. I really think it's super understated, which I get was a choice that they wanted to understate a lot of things. And the other thing is just for me, when I'm going to watch a movie, specifically when I'm going to watch a movie about gay people, I want that stuff that's going to make old people angry, And it annoys me that all I got was one small scene that might make old people angry. and that was the peach scene in that film. And overall, it was just bland to me, and I didn't care about the characters. So from that standpoint, I really think that, I guess Into the Spider-Verse, I feel like, is a lot more childish than any of the other films, which makes sense. It's an animation film, and all of the animation majors at SCAD that I talk to still love, a lot of the childish stuff from animation, There's a reason why people who are not in the age demographic still love, Moana and any new Disney movie that comes out. There is something that appeals to them, and they don't care that it's not, that it's a little childish, right? Which, to me, I really don't get. I very much like things that are in my personal target demographic, if you get what I'm saying, or older. But yeah, so that's my complaint, is that it's a little bit not my target demographic, so I don't like it as much, and I don't think it holds up to multiple viewings. I really don't think that it gets more enjoyable with time, or equally enjoyable with time. Once I had heard all the jokes, none of them were funny the second time. Once I had seen all of the stuff, none of it was cool or interesting the second time.
I'm going to have to watch this movie again.
Whereas I feel like the original trilogy always gives me that feeling. The feeling that, there's a thing. When I rewatch The Big Lebowski, every time I rewatch The Big Lebowski, I see something new, I learn something new. That's a movie that deserves to be watched multiple times, and there's a reason why there's that kind of idea of things that reward multiple viewings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's something special about this. Spider-Man 1 through 3, I don't think reward multiple viewings necessarily, but they have that thing that makes you want to watch them again. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas, and I feel like that is only shared by the top 4 of my list: Spider-Man 1, in order, Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like any of the others still give you that feeling that you got, that you want to keep watching it. And again, every time I watch the original trilogy, I still have full feel moments. When Spider-Man hits Mary Jane, I gasp. When all the New Yorkers carry Spider-Man off the subway in Spider-Man 2, oh my god, I feel it, and I love Spider-Man, and I'm like, yes, and I feel like there are more iconic scenes in that one. And I feel like the casting is more superb. However, I must give props to Spider-Man Homecoming for casting Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is also...
Oh, yeah. He's good. What do you think about Far From Home? Because I sort of have the same feelings about Homecoming from Far From Home. The one thing that I noticed about while watching these two movies is that... Jake Gyllenhaal looks like Tobey Maguire, but with a beard.
That's funny.
They look like the same person. But
Jake Gyllenhaal is actually also on my favorite actors list. I think... So the original trilogy has Willem Dafoe, who is probably one of my top 10 favorite actors. I love Willem Dafoe. Michael Keaton is on my favorite actors list. Jake Gyllenhaal is on my favorite actors list. I don't think there's really anyone else in all the Spider-Mans that is also on my favorite actors list. Maybe J.K. Simmons.
Okay, I was about to say, what do you think about J. Jonah Jameson?
That's the other thing.
Oh, it's so funny.
Oh, J. Jonah Jameson is so perfect in the original trilogy. I can't believe I haven't talked about this. He is absolutely fantastic. He's hilarious. He's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's
I
so
completely
great.
Agree. The writing in those scenes is so good. Like, every interaction that he has is funny. I think that in the third movie, they, like, just sort of, like, I don't know, it's just not as good as the first and the second. But it's still, like, funny and new because he has, like, the pills on his desk and, like, the desk, like, vibrates and shakes shit everywhere and it, like, clearly annoys him. But, I don't think it's as funny because, like, he's not screaming at people, and that's the entire joke.
Yeah. And so I do think Spider-Man, the MCU Spider-Mans miss a lot from not having J. Jonah Jameson as a pretty solid character in the films. And to the best of my knowledge, he's also not in the Amazing Spider-Mans, right?
No, he's not. He is in Far From Home, though. He's in the very end credits.
Right. Which, that was another one of those things where it gave you that feeling, but it was also the novelty of it. It would wear off if I watched it a second time. But overall, the only reason why I preferred Homecoming to Far From Home is Far From Home felt so much like a Marvel movie to me and felt like it needed to be part of something else, whereas I feel like Homecoming really is able to stand alone, and it really is just a good Spider-Man film, whereas I feel like Far From Home is less of a Spider-Man film.
Yeah, because although, like, Iron Man is in the end, like, well, he's a big part of the movie. Iron Man is a big part of Homecoming, right? It's mainly about Spider-Man, he stays in New York and he does Spider-Man things.
Yeah, he didn't feel
Spider-Man is doing Avengers things, and he's doing, like, stuff for, like, the world, and he's, like, tackling, like, and he's like, I don't know, it's like a different type of movie. It's like the different, you nailed it. That's the same reason, and honestly, I kind of prefer the, like, Spider-Man just staying in New York doing New York things. So what is it your, like, paragraph description of Spider-Man 1?
I think we've covered it all, Roberto, and I think this is
long
here's one
enough. Thing. Why do you like Spider-Man 3 more? Like, because
that's the one other thing that I feel like needed to be covered.
Yeah, because, like, I think Spider-Man 3 is the worst of the Sam Raimi ones, and you like it the best, and I don't know how.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people... so much stuff happens in that film, and just so much is just, like... He just needed to cut out, like, half of it, and then, like, focus on making the half that was left good.
There are issues with Spider-Man 3, whereas I don't feel like there really are that many issues, if at all, with Spider-Man 1, other than, you know, some kind of dated CGI, and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that really matters as much. You can't judge it on, like, being an old movie.
Right. Well, unless... it's a topic of discussion for later. But the reason why I like Spider-Man 3 is because I feel like it has the most sequences without giving me anything that really disappoints me. Because the reason why I don't like Spider-Man 2, a lot of people will totally disagree with me on it, is that Spider-Man 2... it is not a fun movie until the last, like, 30 minutes of the film.
I would agree with that.
It's
like,
not...
the entire, like, beginning of Spider-Man 2 is just, like, people shitting on Peter Parker. And it's just, like, people being, like, mean and bitchy to each other. And I'm just like, just stop. Just do anything else than you're doing. And then I want Spider-Man to swing around, but, like, his webs aren't working because he just needs to take a Viagra. And I'm just like, please.
And so, anyway, it's... I really do. I'm somewhat conservative in some ways of if a movie's gonna be something, it should be that thing. And that I totally have that with music as well. I like to be able to put things in boxes a lot of the time. Now, my favorite movies, of course, are the ones that are able to defy those boxes and do it well in a way that doesn't make me angry that it's not in its box, right?
Yeah.
But in some way, a Spider-Man film is a Spider-Man film, and you got to do a Spider-Man film like a Spider-Man film for me. And the reason why I don't like Spider-Man 2 is because a Spider-Man film should always be fun, in my opinion. And there's too much time spent not being fun in Spider-Man 2.
No. Yeah, I agree. That's why I also don't like it as much.
Right.
But I feel like the parts that are funny and like good are really, really funny and really, really good. It's just there's parts that aren't. And
right.
And those parts I'm just like, just move on. And Spider-Man 3 is just like, the entire movie I'm like, why are you doing this? This doesn't make sense. Why would you do this but not do this?
I think I really only have one big complaint about Spider-Man 3. I guess two. Really, overall, the Sandman character I have some complaints about. I think it was a pretty solidly, obviously last-minute decision that the Sandman is the one who actually killed Uncle Ben. And I don't really like that choice.
I don't like it either.
But at the same time, it didn't not work in some ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't the worst decision.
It works, and it's like, oh, okay, but it's just sort of like, why? Like, you're just retreading old ground.
The other complaint I have with Spider-Man 3 is that some of the conversations with the Sandman, the kind of you always have a choice, pushes it a little bit far for me. But other than that, I love it. And one of the things we noticed on the on my most recent viewing of Spider-Man 3 was something that I feel like accurately sums up why I love Spider-Man 3. There is a CGI massive American flag at the very end of Spider-Man 3.
I can see it in my head.
That he moves past as he's swinging to save Mary Jane from Venom. Right? Yeah. It is so...
That's one of the things that I like about the Sam Raimi films is and the Amazing Spider-Man movies have this as well, is that there's a lot, they're not afraid to like be like iconic, like to have like to like be like that like you could take that and now it could be like a painting.
Yeah.
Like if someone painted it, that would be cool.
So anyway, it's like it's so ridiculous. He's swinging it. You didn't have to put the American flag in there.
No, but it's funny.
But I love it. It still gives you that feeling that we keep talking about and I keep bringing up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it's ridiculous. We all laughed when he swung in front of the American flag. But at the same time, it still worked. And we still really liked it. And I just feel like Spider-Man 3 has you the most thoroughly entertained through the whole film of any Spider-Man film ever.
Well, because, okay, my problem with Spider-Man 3 is during the entire movie, I was like, why is Spider-Man kissing Gwen? That's not a thing that he would do. He's not in the Venom suit, so he's not being bad, so why is he doing it in his normal suit, right? And then that makes no sense. That's not who he is. And then from a writing perspective, I don't understand why they gave Peter Parker the Venom suit and then they just gave it to Eddie Brock and then he had to go kill Eddie Brock. Like, just cut Spider-Man having the Venom suit and then just simplify the movie from there because I feel like the movie's too complicated. Everyone in the... Oh, I don't know why they took away the dude's memory and then gave him back his memory from
that
before.
One was... I forgot about that. I also have that complaint.
I don't understand why they do that. That makes no sense either. Like, that's just like, why is this you're adding complication where you already have too much, and I feel like that's dumb. Like, I feel if you cut out those two like plot elements there and you like simplified things, you could probably make the three like villains work. But like also just,
I feel,
because then the other thing is that if you do that, you get rid of like some of the funnier parts of the movie, which is why I like the movie, and it's because Spider-Man being bad Spider-Man, and that's the best part of the movie. Every other part of the movie is just sort of just like a boring CG slog that I don't really like. Spider-Man being like
the wedding ring sequence at the beginning is great.
No, I don't like it because he's on a skateboard and it looks stupid.
Okay. So I'm kind of trying to wrap this up, Roberto, and you keep making it longer. But okay.
Well, I want to go through all of the movies because
I think we have, Roberto. I think we just got to put a cap on Spider-Man 3, and I think we have a pretty solid.
Okay. There's a couple more things that I want to just give points on.
Sure.
In the first Amazing Spider-Man, the last third of it is just shitty and I hate it. I hate his suit in the movie. It's terrible. It's gross and disgusting and it looks terrible.
Okay.
The one good thing about the ending of the movie is when Gwen's father comes in and he's like with a shotgun and he shoots the monster. That's dumb and stupid. That's like a Sam Raimi movie thing. And I just started laughing and I was continuing to laugh for like minutes upon minutes. Like the entire rest of the movie, I was just laughing because the dude came out with a shotgun and started shooting the monster and like froze it and whatever. And they get stabbed. That movie's dumb. Well, that part of the movie is dumb. Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I think the whole thing with his dad, like, there's just plot things in that movie that don't make sense. I understand that you're trying to go for the story there, but there's just too many story things that I think they're trying to go for, and I think that they should just try and cut it out. The suit in this one is honestly probably, like, one of the best suits. It's great. I like it a lot. I wish that it wasn't shiny, though, because I don't like that it has, like, a sheen. I think it's interesting that Electro has, like... Oh! Fucking Electro's teeth get fixed. Like, he gets dropped and electrocuted, and then the gap in his teeth becomes normal with electricity, and it's the dumbest thing. Andrew Garfield has an accent in Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's like putting on like a New Yorker accent, and it bothers me.
So overall, my main complaint about Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2, is I just think that they have three villains, right? Which I don't know if you can even count Rhino as a villain in that film, because
he's just the end.
He's just the end, which pissed me off so much because every trailer for that film had that one shot that's in the movie of him facing Rhino.
That's a cool shot. I like that ending. It's cool.
But it's the thing is I wanted Rhino in the movie. I wanted another three villain film, and I think The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did have some difficulty with juggling as many villains as it had, while I don't think Spider-Man 3, I felt like it was able to more successfully juggle three villains, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say overall, I think I've made all my points. The one thing I did want to bring up before we go is I made a pretty solid mistake that's going to pretty solidly adjust a lot of what has been said so far. But at the same time, I don't know that it really will.
Okay.
X-Men came out, I believe, 2 years before Spider-Man. And X-Men certainly was another one that really helped reinvent the modern superhero movie.
I completely forgot about all the X-Men movies.
But the only other thing I would say about the X-Men movies is it still is a group movie.
Yeah,
which
and it's not like a specific one. Also, you are not making me. I don't want to watch all those movies. We are not doing a group list of all of those. At least until summer, because then I'll have time.
okay. The X-Men movies are all great, other than maybe Apocalypse and maybe The Last Stand.
Ooh.
But
I'm sorry. I'm just remembering stupid lines from these films.
yeah, the other thing is I feel like X-Men are able to handle the whole group dynamic comic in a way that I don't know that the Avengers really have. I don't know where my criticism goes there. I think it's because too many of the characters are too important, and we have to have all of the characters have to have their own thing, which sometimes annoys me because I feel like it takes away a little bit from everything. But we're getting into something completely different at the end, and that's ridiculous.
Okay, specifically illustrating my point that I was saying way earlier. Okay, so whenever he's stopping the rhino in the very beginning of the movie, right? He jumps onto the side of the cab and he starts talking to the rhino, and he just start making jokes at him and whatnot, right? And then the rhino continues to drive and plows through 5 other cars, right? Full of people, and he's still making jokes to the rhino. Do Spider-Man things. Stop him and then make jokes, because you're not saving the people who he just ran through. And then he goes and he saves the one black person simp character, right? Who then becomes evil. And he saves the one person and spends 30 minutes talking to him, or 30 seconds talking to him, and then he goes back and does whatever. But it's that goes back to illustrate my earlier points of him not taking care of people and him trying to be funny before taking care of people. I like that Electro has metal music whenever he's doing things. Oh, Peter Parker in these movies seems like a crazy boyfriend. He just seems like one of those boyfriends that are ooh, why'd you date him? Because just all the things that happens in these movies, or the way that he talks to Gwen, or the things that he does, I'm just ew. So I don't like that.
You good?
Yeah, that's everything on my list.
All right.
Spider-Man is a dumb bitch for kissing Gwen in Spider-Man 3. Yeah, he shouldn't. I already talked about this. Forget it. Never mind.
All right. It's been another lovely episode. Glad to be here. Excellent.
I had a lot of notes.
Yeah,
I had so many notes.
Yeah, you did.
I have a Google Doc of probably 2 pages of notes on all these movies.
That's ridiculous and funny.
I don't think it's
Well, it's been real. I believe it's dinner time now.
Okay. This is gonna be an hour and 40 minutes.
I'm sure it will be. So.
It's gonna be an hour 45. I really think it'll be funny if someone listens through all of this. I hope it's entertaining.
Well, that's the thing. You want to make a podcast that people want to listen to the whole thing of.
I hope we did. Anyway, if you did get it this far, I'm sorry. We probably should have made it shorter. We won't tackle 8 movies in one episode anymore. We'll probably just stick to 1.
3.
Because 8 is too many.
3 is fine.
Yeah, we probably could have done 3.
All right.
Yeah, that's not that bad.
Well,
Okay.
that's all, folks.